A producer who became known for his work on several blockbuster movies in the 80s and 90s is Joel Silver. In fact, next to Jerry Bruckheimer, he's probably most associated with big explosive action movies of the era. However, in recent years, Silver's career has taken quite the turn. So how did he get so successful, and why have his fortunes gone down lately? Silver got his start in Hollywood working as an assistant to producer Lawrence Gordon, very quickly moving up the ranks and eventually getting an associate producer credit on The Warriors and a co-producer credit on Xanadu. Around this time, he would get a few executive jobs at studios like Universal and Polygram, but those did not last long, as he developed a reputation for overspending. He then became a full-on producer, working alongside Gordon on a number of movies, most notably 48 Hours, directed by Walter Hill. That movie became a big hit thanks to the pairing of Eddie Murphy and Nick Nolte, although it also marked the start of his infamous arguments with studio heads. Michael Eisner, who ran Paramount at the time, was particularly annoyed with Silver during the making of 48 Hours. Silver and Gordon would also produce Hill's next two films, Streets of Fire, which did not perform well, although it would eventually get a cult following, and Brewster's Millions, which performed better. In 1985, Joel Silver would start his own production company, Silver Pictures, although he would still work with Lawrence Gordon on some projects. He produced the John Hughes science fiction comedy Weird Science, which did well at the box office. He then signed a deal with 20th Century Fox to produce movies for them, and this is when his penchant for making big action movies really took hold. His first movie for Fox was the Arnold Schwarzenegger vehicle Commando, which was seen as a silly movie but was nonetheless a box office hit. He became a producer on the Whoopi Goldberg comedy Jumping Jack Flash after Penny Marshall replaced the original director, but it was a critical and commercial disappointment. He then produced the alien invasion action movie Predator, with Silver being instrumental in bringing Schwarzenegger on board. It would become an immediate hit with audiences and further cemented its lead actor's star power. On the Predator set, Carl Weathers discussed with Silver the idea of doing an action movie with him as the lead, which became Action Jackson. Released by the smaller distributor Lorimar, Action Jackson got negative reviews, but nonetheless performed okay at the box office. In addition to Predator, Silver produced two other major franchise starters in the late 80s. One was Lethal Weapon. Written by Shane Black, the script was picked up by Warner Brothers, with Vice President Mark Canton feeling Silver would be a good fit. Starring Mel Gibson and Danny Glover, the movie was a critical and commercial success, with Warner not wasting any time in getting sequels off the ground. The other was Die Hard. Silver brought in Predator director John McTiernan to make the movie and cast Bruce Willis as John McClane, even though he was primarily known for the television series Moonlighting rather than action roles. The movie proved to be an audience favorite during the summer of 1988, doing better than expected, and is now regarded as a classic in the genre. He also produced Roadhouse, starring Patrick Swayze. The movie was ridiculed by critics on original release, but it did perform well, and those very over-the-top aspects they disliked would allow the film to quickly gain a sizable following. By the end of the 80s, Joel Silver became known as one of Hollywood's big hit producers, although like I said earlier, he did have a reputation for ruffling feathers as his movies often went over budget. As a joke, he even had a cameo in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, as a director gets annoyed at Roger at the beginning of the movie. It was well known that Michael Eisner was not fond of Silver, so Robert Zemeckis and Steven Spielberg put him in the movie and made him unrecognizable as a bit of fun. He honestly turns in a pretty good performance, and maybe if he had not become a producer, he might have ended up a successful character actor. In 1987, Silver signed a deal with Warner Brothers to release his films, a partnership that would last for over 2 decades. Like his contract with Fox, he could also produce films for other studios, but he stayed pretty loyal to WB for the most part. During the 90s, his track record would become a tad spotty. While Die Hard 2 continued the success of the previous movie, Predator 2 was an underperformer and led to that franchise going on pause for a while. Meanwhile, Silver produced The Adventures of Ford Fairlane, a comedy starring Andrew Dice Clay and directed by Rennie Harlin. Fox curiously decided to schedule that movie a week after Die Hard 2, which was also directed by Harlin. It would end up becoming a critical and commercial failure. Then there was Hudson Hawk, which like a lot of Silver productions went considerably over budget. Nonetheless, Bruce Willis's heavy involvement made TriStar think they had a hit. However, the film was disliked by critics, and while it did better internationally than in North America, that was not enough to earn its money back. Things would pick up for Silver with The Last Boy Scout, starring Willis and Damon Wayans, and the science fiction movie Demolition Man with Sylvester Stallone and Wesley Snipes. He would try his hand at producing a family film with Richie Rich, and while its theatrical numbers were underwhelming, it did extremely well on video. The Kurt Russell action movie Executive Decision, the political thriller Conspiracy Theory, and the fourth Lethal Weapon movie would pull in solid grosses. Doing less well was the action movie Fair Game, which was model Cindy Crawford's attempt to jumpstart an acting career, and the comedy Father's Day, starring Billy Crystal and Robin Williams. Silver and Lawrence Gordon were also pushed off the third Die Hard movie due to disagreements with Bruce Willis, who brought in Syngee Pictures head Andrew Vajner to produce instead. He would score one of his biggest successes with The Matrix, though. The Wachowskis had previously written a script for the Silver-produced movie Assassins, although they were displeased with the rewrites done to their work. Warner Brothers then decided to pick up another script they had, with Silver also coming on board to produce. The Matrix would end up a sleeper hit during the spring of 1999 as audiences responded to what the Wachowskis had cooked up with the ambitious science fiction movie. Silver was also one of the producers on the popular HBO horror series Tales from the Crypt, which ran for 7 seasons. Together with fellow Crypt producers Robert Zemeckis and Gilbert Adler, he started Dark Castle Entertainment in 1999 as a label for horror movies, with their first release being House on Haunted Hill. That movie performed well along with some other Dark Castle productions like Ghost Ship and Gothica. In the 2000s, Silver would have the occasional success like the Matrix sequels, V for Vendetta, and Orphan, but most of the films he produced either did not excite audiences or were not given a fair shake. For example, the Shane Black film Kiss Kiss Bang Bang got great reviews, but Warner Brothers never played it on more than a few hundred screens. Nonetheless, it would find a bigger audience on DVD. There was also the Wachowskis' live-action adaptation of Speed Racer, which was a huge flop, but has now become reassessed and developed a significant following. Then there were the movies that neither performed well nor got good critical reviews, nor had any kind of strong audience response, like The Invasion, The Brave One, and Fred Claus. Silver did end the decade on a high note when he produced Guy Ritchie's take on Sherlock Holmes starring Robert Downey Jr. The film took over $500 million as viewers responded to this version of the famous detective. The sequel, Sherlock Holmes: A Game of Shadows, also had strong business, as did the Liam Neeson movie Unknown. However, even with those occasional hits, Warner Brothers decided it was time to end their deal with him. In 2012, they agreed to pay him $30 million, which gave them the complete rights to the Silver Pictures movies produced for WB over the years, and also allowed them to make any new entries in franchises like Lethal Weapon and The Matrix without him. Joel Silver would still be involved with any new Sherlock Holmes sequels, although the third film has been stuck in development hell for several years now. He then signed a deal with Universal to produce movies for them, but the only one to come out of that partnership was the airplane thriller Non-Stop. Curiously, he would briefly return to Warner Brothers when they released The Nice Guys, a Shane Black comedy he produced. Even though the movie was praised by critics, it was a box office disappointment. It retains a sizable following, though. In 2019, after years of overspending and production issues, Silver left his namesake company with plans to produce future films himself. However, he's only had one producing credit since leaving. Joel Silver is also one of those producers who's infamous in Hollywood for his temper and occasional shouting matches, with quite a few fictional bearded producers and executives in movies like True Romance rumored to be based on him. And as we recently saw with Scott Rudin, that's something that is bound to catch up with anyone in the industry. In 2023, Silver was fired off 2 films he was producing for Amazon Studios, reportedly for verbally abusing executives there, although he and those working close with him say it was because of creative disagreements. He still retained a producing credit on the Roadhouse remake, but he will not receive one on Shane Black's upcoming crime film Play Dirty. I'm sure one day it will be revealed exactly what went down, but Silver does not appear to have any projects in the works unless Sherlock Holmes 3 gets off the ground. By all accounts, though, Joel Silver is considered quite the colorful character, and what we often think of when picturing the fiery producer willing to spend any money to get his movies made. See you next time.